Hello everyone, Cartothelissa here. It's a Wednesday, which means it's time for a brand new video. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about the United States. Well, actually, I better whisper this next part in case any aliens are listening. We don't want them writing anything down. But I wanted to talk about the United States Space Force. That's right, guys. We have a Space Force now. I've had a lot of questions about the Space Force because, like, the Marine Corps is an outgrowth of the Navy. The Space Force is an outgrowth of the Air Force, and being that I'm in the Air Force, people have asked me questions like, why was the Space Force created? Is it really a distinct branch? And, you know, a lot of people want to know how they get into the Space Force because they kind of like the idea of perhaps fighting in space someday. So this video is going to be all about that. And to kick things off, let's talk about the mission of the Space Force. So the official mission of the Space Force, of course, is to protect America's vulnerable orbital networks. And since December, the Space Force has had the same status as the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps. So, the Space Force is more than just a Netflix original with Steve Carell. The Space Force is considered a legit, newly formed branch of service. And when you think about how long it's been since we've had a brand new branch of service, it's really kind of cool because you get to tell your grandkids, hey, I was alive when they created a brand new military branch. And the Space Force, as I said earlier, is really an outgrowth of the United States Air Force because the Air Force just a few years ago created the Air, Space and Mobility Command. So the Air Force has been in the space domain for a while now, and the Space Force is not only about, protecting our critical infrastructure in space, but it's also about exploring the ways in which we might conduct warfare in space at some point in the future. So it's not as, sci-fi as it sounds. And when you realize that, banking systems depend on, satellites, even doctors' offices, satellites feed so much information back to our planet, and we rely on this information on a daily basis. And there have been, talks recently about a Carrington-like event, which might, destroy our infrastructure, and that's why it should be hardened, etc. But not only are there, natural events that could threaten our infrastructure, there are also, foreign enemies that are currently considering how they can wreak havoc on our critical infrastructure and essentially cut off information flow. So that is another reason why the Space Force was created. And really what the Space Force does is provide centralization. So, of course, we have been conducting missions in space for quite some time, and these were overseen by the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. So, of course, this is fragmentation. And ultimately, when you have fragmented responsibility, you end up with no responsibility. So the Space Force actually centralizes responsibility, and now space missions will fall under, of course, the United States Space Force. So that's just another reason for its creation. Now, a lot of people are asking, how do I get into the Space Force? So to answer that quickly, now they are taking people that are already serving in the military. So if you're already in the Army, the Navy, or the Air Force, you have a better chance of getting into the Space Force. Another thing to keep in mind is this is a highly specialized and technical branch of the military. So they are looking for people for very specialized skill sets. And they are actually looking for healthcare workers, because if people are going to be, conducting more missions in space, their bodies will be introduced to elements, etc., that they're not, used to. So there's a particular interest in bringing specialized healthcare workers into the Space Force. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of what the Space Force will do is manage information flow. So satellites feed information to troops on the ground, and that information helps us, of course, hit our targets accurately. And there are also systems that analyze and collect weather data, and of course that information is fed to troops on the ground. And that information is instrumental in placing troops, and also instrumental when it comes to figuring out the type of equipment needed, the type of weaponry, etc., that would be most useful in a given environment. So also those that are already serving in positions where they're collecting this data and they're synthesizing it, those are also the type of people that the Space Force would favor. And when it comes to joining the Space Force, another thing to keep in mind is there's not going to be an official Space Force Academy. So there is a Naval Academy, of course, in Annapolis, and those that attend the Naval Academy upon graduation can decide whether they want to go Marine Corps or Navy. Well, in the same vein, some Air Force Academy graduates were among the first officers to join the Space Force this past May, right, in the middle of the coronavirus outbreak. But anyways, these Air Force Academy cadets were among the first Space Force officers. And so there's not going to be a new, at least not now, there's not going to be a new military academy. So if you're interested in joining the Space Force as an officer, it would be a good idea to go to the Air Force Academy, although keep in mind that there's certainly no guarantee that you would get a spot in the Space Force. The Space Force as it exists now is the absolute smallest branch. Way smaller than the Army, the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps is actually pretty small, but it's even smaller than the Air Force and the Marine Corps. And we don't know exactly how large the Space Force will become, but for now it is certainly the smallest branch in the military. And for those of you that are seriously considering joining our newest military branch, there are several Space Force specialties. So I want to make sure that I put this information in your hands, like I said, in case you're seriously considering joining the Space Force. So computers and computer science is one hot specialty for the Space Force. Emergency management and response, engineering, future technologies, logistics and transportation, and then of course, as I mentioned earlier, they are also looking for specialized healthcare workers. Now, some other areas of specialty include intelligence experts. So if you happen to be a military intelligence officer in the Army or in the Air Force, or that was your bag back in the day, you all know, if you've been watching, I actually used to be a military intelligence officer in the Army. So that's another specialty, is intelligence. They're also looking for natural science specialists. So for you scientists out there, you might want to check out the Space Force if you've ever wanted to do science in space. Okay. And then, of course, special warfare and weaponry is also one of the areas that the Space Force really needs people to serve in right now. I would also encourage you guys to check out the Space Force's website. Yes, we actually already have a website for the Space Force, and I can actually show that to you guys now. Space Force website, and you can see that if you're interested in becoming an officer in the Space Force and you're already a cyberspace officer, let's say in the Air Force, well, there you go. Then of course there's Space Operations Officer, and then when it comes to enlisted careers, there's Space Systems Operations, Cyber Systems Operations, Knowledge Operations Management. But anyways, it's just airforce.com/Space Force. And you can see here there's an area where you can apply now, and you can actually answer a battery of questions like related to your work history and your interests and your existing skill set, and you will actually get some feedback about what specialties might be available to you. So make sure you check the website out, and that's really, it for now. The Space Force is very, very new. It's only existed for a few months now. So I'm sure there will be more information to come. But I just wanted to give you guys the information that I currently have, just in case you're thinking about joining the Space Force. Just don't tell the aliens, because again, we don't want them, writing stuff down. All right, so I'll be back next Wednesday with another video. If you guys have any specific topics you would like to hear about, just let me know in the comments below. And of course, if you have any questions about that military lifestyle, let me know. I'm just getting started with the channel, so hopefully these videos help you. You can help me by making sure you like and subscribe. And I will see you guys next time.